What makes the difference between a pilot and a passenger? The only thing that a passenger cares about is for the plane to take him from one city to another. His knowledge about planes ends at the level of boarding it and sitting on the chair. Most passengers even need to be shown how to put on their seat belts. And I bet you that by the time the flight attendants or computer screens finish demonstrating the emergency drill, most people have already forgotten. The pilot, on the other hand, has mastered the laws of aerodynamics, the principles by which the aeroplane functions, how to fly it, and how to respond in emergency situations, with the goal of taking his passengers to their destination safely. Will you board a plane if you were told that the pilot for today is your pastor or your mother who has had no training in flying a plane? Certainly not. But was the pilot born a pilot? Certainly not. So what is the difference between the passenger and the pilot? The pilot has learned how to fly a plane and the passenger has not. Now, we know that our planet is just a tiny grain of matter in an infinitely expanding universe that is made up of solar systems, galaxies, clusters, and superclusters, and whose edge we have not yet discovered. We know that as immense as this universe is, the visible part of it constitutes less than 0.001%, while the remaining space constitutes over 99.999%. We also know that this space is not empty, but that it is a unified matrix of energy that is conscious and alive. The absolute, eternal, infinite, unfathomable, invisible, and living presence from which all things emerge, which sustains all things, which connects all things, and to which all things return, is what is known as spirit. All things in creation are the manifestation of the one spirit, the same way that all the waves upon the sea are the manifestations of the one sea, and all the leaves and fruits on a tree are the manifestations of the one tree. The person who understands the natural laws of the universe and how they relate to him develops the capacity to navigate through life with the mastery, confidence, and effortlessness of a god. He is the spiritual equivalent of a pilot. This knowledge and practice is what is called faith. Faith is a mental faculty which is entirely scientific. Faith is the direct knowledge of the laws that govern the universe and how to apply them to one's life. Your belief in creeds, dogmas, cultural stereotypes, political ideologies, past experience, external circumstances, popular opinion, and religious authorities is not faith. It is superstition and conformity. When belief is tested through the light of reason, proven through experience, and validated by scientific evidence, it matures into faith. Faith is awareness, enlightenment, the state of oneness with the spirit that orchestrates all things. In the state of faith, you become a co-creator because you are one with the Creator. Now you understand why without faith it is impossible to please God. That is, impossible to fulfill your destiny. Now you understand why with faith all things are possible for you. I have set this foundation of faith so as to sow into your consciousness this awareness that all poverty boils down to the lack of knowledge, and all wealth boils down to an abundance of knowledge that is converted into value. No one ever becomes a pilot or medical doctor or even a hairdresser simply by fasting, praying, attending motivational seminars, attending night vigils, singing praises at crossover nights, and paying tithes. If you want to break the cycle of poverty and rewrite the financial DNA of your family, you have to tackle financial education with the same assiduity that you apply in learning any other profession. Let me explain to you why they don't teach financial education in school. You read from your Bible that right from the days of Abraham, people kept slaves or servants. You read how the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. You read from history how India used to have a caste system in which society was stratified according to socioeconomic class under claims that this was a divine will. You learn in history how in medieval Europe, the feudal system created a society in which a few people became the haves and the majority, known as the have-nots, were slaving for them. You may also know that even before the commercialization and internationalization of the slave trade by the European invaders, the buying and selling of slaves was already a cultural practice in Africa. Thus, since the dawn of human civilization thousands of years ago, society has always been made up of the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. The upper class has always been the kings, popes, bishops, industrialists, and merchants who made up about 3% of society but control more than 90% of the wealth. The lower class has always been the rest of humanity, which society has engineered to work for the upper class. The middle class is a dynamic group whose size keeps changing depending on the era. They are the few white-collar slaves that are paid by the masters to manage the laboring slaves. Schools were created as a result of the booming demand for skilled labor that came with the Industrial Revolution. The idea of education was to mass produce skilled laborers for the factories and soldiers for the battlefields. You can therefore understand that although our campuses are becoming more and more sophisticated, the concept of education has changed very little over time. With the end of slavery and the introduction of human rights, the labor camps and daily meals that the masters used to give their laborers have changed form. Today, they sell to you an illusion called the American dream. Give you a student loan, a house, a car, and credit cards, then pay you a little salary that is always less than the debts that you accumulate through these credit lines. The goal is so that you live your whole life running in a treadmill like a caged rat, turning the wheel of the economy that gets the top 3% richer and richer while you die indebted. If you're like most of us, then poverty has been in your family since the days of Abraham. The only means by which financial education has been transmitted throughout history is through family lines. Through their example, the top 3% teach their children to create wealth, and through their example, the remaining 97% teach their children how to create and live in poverty. Schooling has nothing to do with it. In fact, many of the genius professors on our university campuses are broke. Just look at their shoes. Religion also has nothing to do with it. Some of the most pious people I know cannot even send their kids to school. Fortunately, we are now in the information age where financial education is no longer confined to family circles and secret societies. If you find a purpose that is bigger than your quest for survival, You will see the urgency in getting rich. With that sense of urgency, you will be prepared to become a self-directed learner who is on his way to earning his financial freedom through education and practice. The natural laws of the universe are yours to study and understand. The game of money is yours to study and play. The only thing you need to begin with is your mind and the decision to change your life. You can begin from rags and work your way up to riches. This is what I want for you, because I know that you can do it, because I have done it. If there is any one take-home message for you today, I invite you to rejoice in the awareness that there is nothing permanent about poverty, and it has nothing to do with destiny or the will of God. It is not your fault that you inherited a poverty mindset and culture, but it is entirely your fault that you continue to be enslaved by poverty. The cause of wealth is in the mind. The cause of poverty is in the mind. The paper in your wallet is not money. It is only the symbol of money. Money is the current that flows through you as you create and exchange value with the economy. Anyone who masters how to use his mind to create and exchange value can have in his possession any amount of paper and toys that he wants. You have a mind. That is all the capital you need. I am GodfreyEsoh. Thank you for following this episode of Raptures of Inspiration.